This video explains how to use WIC checks, the WIC ID folder, and authorized food list. As a new WIC participant, you're probably wondering how to get your WIC foods. You'll receive a set of WIC checks with your food items printed on them. You must take the checks to a WIC-approved store in Montana. To find a WIC-approved store, look for the sign WIC Accepted Here near the store's front entrance. Your WIC office will also give you a list of WIC-approved stores in your area. At the store, you will shop for your foods and use the checks to pay for them. Shopping for WIC foods is not hard, but there are rules you and your proxy must follow. By following the rules, you will get the right foods and shopping will be easy. The first rule is to have everything with you when you shop. You must take your WIC ID folder, the right WIC checks, and authorized food list to the store. Your WIC ID folder must contain your signature and those of any proxies you authorize in order to use your WIC checks. The store cashier is required to verify this information on your ID folder. The second rule is to handle WIC checks properly. This means taking only the checks you plan to spend when you shop, making sure those checks have valid dates, and not signing the checks ahead of time. Let's review each point. You likely receive several sets of WIC checks. Treat them like money. They cannot be replaced if they are lost or stolen. Before you shop, pick out only the checks you want to spend. Place them in the pockets of your ID folder and store the rest of your checks in a safe place. As you pick out your checks, be sure the dates are okay to spend. On the right-hand side of the checks, you'll see a set of dates. These dates are the first date and last date you can spend the check. You can only spend a WIC check on or between these dates. The store cashier will not accept a check if you try to spend it too early or too late. Now take a look at the signature line on the bottom of the check. This line must stay blank until the cashier fills in the price for the WIC foods you buy. Only after the price is filled should you or your proxy sign the check. The cashier will compare the check signature to the one on the ID folder. If the signature does not match, the cashier must void the sale and return the check to you. So be sure you and your proxy sign the check the same way you sign the ID folder. Now we're ready for rule number 3. Buy only the foods that are WIC authorized and in the amounts the check allows. To do this, you must understand the wording on the check and the details found in the authorized food list. On the check, you'll see the WIC foods and amounts you're allowed to buy. Here's an example. This check allows you to buy 1 gallon of whole milk, 1 16 to 15 ounce bag of dried beans, peas, or lentils, 1 64 ounce plastic bottle or 12 ounce can of frozen juice, and 1 16 to 14 ounce WIC whole grain choice. You don't have to buy a food, however you may not substitute a food in its place. Your fruit and vegetable check looks a little different from the other checks. Unlike the other checks, this one contains a specific dollar amount you're allowed to spend on fruits and vegetables. Now let's look at the WIC authorized food list. It contains the details you and your proxy need to choose the right foods. The authorized food list is organized into sections from each WIC food. You'll see allowed and not allowed lists that tell you what you can and cannot buy. Take a look at each section to see what you are allowed to buy, keeping in mind some of these common mistakes. For instance, the only flavor of yogurt you're allowed to buy is plain or vanilla and not Greek. Also, if you don't want whole wheat bread, you may get brown rice or whole wheat or soft corn tortillas instead. Another one to watch out for is the baby food. Twin packs count as 2 jars of food, not 1. Some sections of the authorized food list specify brands as shown here in the juice section. You may not find every brand or type of food where you shop. WIC-approved stores are required to carry some, but not every variety of food shown in the authorized foods list. Take time before your first shopping trip to look over your checks and authorized foods list. Shopping is easier and quicker when you're familiar with the details. Once you've picked out your WIC foods and are ready to pay for them, here is rule number 4. Follow the checkout procedure. First, place your WIC foods on the counter, sorting them into groups for each check you are spending, placing the check in front of the items. If you are spending 2 checks, there must be 2 groups of food on the counter. Next, tell the cashier you are using WIC checks and hand the cashier your WIC ID folder. Let the cashier ring up all the foods on the checks and then write the total price on it. Sign the WIC check at this time. The cashier will compare your signature to the one on the ID folder to be sure they match. Then you will be given a sales receipt with the word WIC on it. For each remaining check, the cashier will ring up the foods, enter the price, ask you to sign the check, and then give you a sales receipt. What about your fruit and vegetable purchase? Remember, the check has a maximum dollar amount you can spend. Place the vegetables and fruit on the counter, separating for each fruit and vegetable check you are spending. Let the cashier ring up the total. If the total is equal to or less than the dollar amount on the check, the cashier will enter the price and you can sign the check. If the total goes over the amount on the check, the cashier will tell you by how much, and you can pay the difference with cash, a credit, a debit, or gift card, food stamps, or a personal check if the store accepts them.
So your total is $7.99 and the WIC check is for $6?
Oh, okay. Could I pay the difference
Yes,
with
you
cash?
can.
If you do not want to pay the difference, ask the cashier to remove some of the produce from your purchase to get the cost down to the dollar limit on the check. You don't get change back if the actual price of your fruit and vegetables is less than the amount on the check. If you're buying non-WIC items, put them on the counter behind all your WIC foods so they get rung up as a separate sale. Now let's summarize what you and your proxy need to do to use WIC checks. Spend WIC checks only at WIC approved stores. Take your WIC ID folder, only the checks you will use, and the authorized foods list when you shop. Use WIC checks on or between the first and last dates to spend. Choose foods listed on each check and refer to the authorized foods list for details. At the checkout, sort WIC foods into groups for each check. Tell the cashier you're using WIC checks and give the cashier your ID folder. Sign the check only after the cashier writes the total price on it. If the total for your fruit and vegetable purchase goes over the check limit, pay the difference or ask to remove some items. Be sure to take your ID folder and all WIC receipts with you when you leave the store. Here are some things to keep in mind. You can use most checkout lanes. Do not, however, use a cash-only express lane or a self-checkout lane. You can also use coupons. If the store has a discount card or a promotion like buy one get one free, you can apply it to your WIC purchase, but you don't get cash or credit in return. And never accept a rain check for a WIC food not available at the time you shop. If you have a problem or concern about a WIC food, ask the store manager or customer service representative for help. Do not return a WIC food to the store unless it was spoiled when you bought it. In this case, you may be permitted to make an exact exchange. Contact your WIC clinic if you feel you are having problems with a WIC store.